morning guys and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a slightly different video. We are going to do a recap, in case you couldn't guess, of the 1 year that I've had Milo for. So this is the baby now, enjoying his dinner rather noisily. So it was actually yesterday, September 2nd, that was the first day I ever laid eyes on him in person. I had seen him obviously on, I think it was advertised on Horsemart or Horsecrest, one of those. At the time, I wasn't looking for a thoroughbred. I wanted, ideally, an Irish sport. Minimum height of 15.2 to about 16.1, because I'm only, about 5'2", 5'3", so I'm really not that big. And lo and behold, the thing that caught my eye was a 15.2 bay gelding thoroughbred. Not what I was really looking for, but I tried him anyway. It was pretty much love at first ride. His owner walked and trotted him round for me at first, and then she hopped off so that she could pop some jumps up while I had a walk and trot. And she had said to me before, she was like, he runs into his canter a bit. He's not, you need quite a bit of leg to get him into canter. So I thought, I've ridden, lazy ponies, it won't be that bad. And lo and behold, I put my leg on and off he went into canter. Quite a nice, sweet little canter. I was a bit concerned when I was first trotting him round because it felt like we were going really downhill. I believe that's because when I tried him, he was in a 16-inch saddle, and also he was probably still bum high. His birthday's in June, on June the 5th. So I went to view him on September the 2nd, so he was still a fairly new 5-year-old, still fairly babyish. So because of that, that's why I think he felt a bit more downhill, is probably he was a bit bum high and he was very, very unbalanced. But when he was cantering, it was such a nice canter. I was like, actually, I really like this. I popped him over some jumps. I didn't see the owner jumping before. I was feeling brave. I had my back protector on. I've only got one video of us when we did a little sort of 70-centimetre height. The owner was like, this is, around the max that he's jumping at the moment. So I was like, okay, and that's fine. Let's just try it anyway. And he was so sweet. He just I kept him in a rhythm and we just hit it bang on and he just floated over. And I was like, okay, I quite like this. After I rode him in the school, we then did a little hack where we just went round the lanes on the farm he was at and then did a tiny bit of road work. He saw a tiny bit of traffic and I knew, okay, going in traffic, he doesn't care. And then she said, if you, trot him on up the hill, you'll see that he's not nappy, because I mentioned that one of the previous horses I tried, and the owner was like, he's not nappy. He doesn't nap, he's just scared. Which, I don't know about you guys, but my definition of napping is when you ask a horse to go forward and it doesn't want to, and it stops and it digs its feet in and it goes backwards. That's what this one did, except this one would also rear and spin. But it wasn't napping. It wasn't napping. So, anyway, trotted him on. He didn't really care that he was going away from his owner and my friend that came with. And I was like, yep, I quite like him. She also said, yeah, he's good with gates as well. So I took him up to the gate that went back onto the farm, unlatched it, and made him walk backwards, something he had not done before. And she was like, normally I walk him forward through the gate. And I was like, sorry, I didn't know the gate opened both ways, so I just kind of pulled it towards me. She was like, that's fine. And while we were saying this, I was sat on him, and I touched here. So I was sat on his back, and I just put my hand here to give him a little pat and just say, good boy, well done. Because I didn't think anything of it. I'm very much a patty rider. I will sit and I'll pat their neck, their shoulder, I'll pat behind, the saddle. I think it all came to, and it was the overwhelmingness of a stranger on him, opening a gate how he hadn't done it before, and oh my gosh, somebody's touching me where I've not been touched before, and he bolted. But he bolted, and he went quick, and then he kind of steadied up, and I could bring him back quite nicely, and I thought, actually, if that's his bolt, I don't feel like I'm in trouble. I don't feel like I'm scared, because it wasn't a blind bolt and it wasn't a bolt with bronc. It was just, I'm panicking, I'm going really fast. So 2 days later, I spoke to my instructor about it, spoke to the boyfriend at the time, who's now my fiance, about it, and said, I think I really actually like him, because I've not had any sort of second guesses on him since viewing him. I went out on a fun ride on the Sunday, and I was going to ping the owner a message with my offer on, like, when I came back that afternoon. And she said to me, "Oh, I've got somebody coming to view him this afternoon." And I was like, "Oh God, like I need to kind of get in quick because I don't want to lose him." And so I gave her a phone call, and I said, "This is my offer. Let me know what you think." And she said, "Oh, I'll just double check with my husband because he was one that bought him for me originally." So I then had to wait sort of half an hour after putting the offer in. And she had said, that she's hoping that the other people hadn't already left to come and view him. She called me back about half an hour later and said, "Yep, offer accepted." And I was like, "Brilliant, I'll give you a deposit to guarantee him." It was only 500 quid. I was like, "Deposit to guarantee him until the vetting," which I had booked on a Wednesday that followed. And sadly, the people that were going to view him were already on their way, had to turn and go back home. But that brings us to, obviously, he flew through vetting. I had him 5-stage vetted, and I also had X-rays on his front right fetlock, just because, as you can see there, he's got a bit of a gnarly scar. I don't know where he got it from. The previous owner said he had it when she got him. So I was like, let's just, get it double checked, and just in case there's anything nasty under it. But that came back clear, and it was far enough away from the joint. The vet was like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's all good. So I was like, brilliant. Off we go. Let's go pick up my pony. When I first got him, I didn't have any tack really ready for him. I had measurements and stuff from the owner, so I obviously bought in a lightweight rug and a medium weight rug, and I had a bridle and an egg butt snaffle. So we had like a bridle together, but I needed to buy a saddle. So contacted the saddle fitter, and she came out a week or so after I had him. So we had a week of not really doing anything. I'll put some clips in now, and this is from when I free-schooled him, and I started to see, what that back end could really do, and I could see his just love for jumping, and he was so, so sweet and so easy to free school. But the one thing I will mention is in that video, you can see he's got a fly mask on. Now, I've mentioned it in one of my vlogs. He is incredibly ear shy because he has something called oral plaques, which are like warty growths in both of his ears. So he's incredibly ear shy because they obviously are a bit sore, and I don't know whether anybody's kind of hurt them either on purpose or on accident previously. So that fly mask to get it on took me 20 minutes. Now I can do it in about 10 or so seconds. But it's been a long road. It's been a lot of, stroking around his ears and being like, "Yeah, look, it's fine. Stroke your ear, you get a treat. Good boy." So it's taken a long time. And then even with bridling, I don't put the bridle on over his ears. I undo it at the side, throw it over like a head collar, and then do it up because it's just not worth the fight for me. I've just changed arms because this hand is getting very sore. Yeah, so that was essentially the first week. There wasn't really a lot going on. And it wasn't until really towards the end of the month where he had his first hack and we started doing more things. Hello. He's off to go and get his hay. So yeah, it wasn't until sort of like the end of September that I actually started riding him properly. Everything was kept really, really simple because he was so young and so green. Hello. He didn't know how to work in an outline. I'll put a photo in now of when I first saw him. He weighed 430 kilo, and I know that he weighed bang on that because we actually had a weighbridge come out from Spillers. So put him on the weighbridge, 430 kilo. I think he got a body score of like 3, something like that. He was really, really skinny, but now he's actually got quite a nice sort of covering coming. You can just about see his ribs. Top line still needs a bit of work, but we are getting there. The first sort of schools were really basic. It was just trying to get him to work down. I don't have a video from my very first lesson, but he essentially went around like a giraffe because he had his eyes on stalks. Everything he was just looking at. He was really tense. He was hollow. So it was a lot of just, let's encourage him to work down, relax, keep everything nice and steady. It's no pressure. It's just getting him used to me getting used to him, and him sort of settling into his new way of life. So that's what we did for the first few lessons. We kept it pretty stress-free. We did basic jumps and basic bits of pole work just to, get him thinking and start educating him a bit more, because he hadn't really jumped much. I think he had jumped his first oxer in August before I bought him. So he was really, really green. And even then, the oxer was like 50, 60 centimeters. It was tiny. It was also in October that he saw his first ever cross-country jumps, aka logs on the floor. So this was the little clip that I've got of him just going up the line of 3 down at the bottom field of my old yard. He didn't look at them at all. Before in this clip, I did walk him over them so that he could see he's not going to die and that he is meant to go over, not around. And then after that, he was just like, yeah, okay, we're going to pop these as normal. I do this every day. So he really surprised me with that, and how he didn't really sort of hesitate or panic about it either, which was good. Start of November, I took him to both of ours first pole clinics at a stable about 20 minutes away from mine, where he did really well. And as you can see from those clips, there was no outline, no real contact, no clue what he was doing or what I was doing. So it was all a bit scrappy. We were very green, but I was quite happy with him and how he behaved himself, especially because it was the first time he'd ever been, that I know of, been ridden with other horses, and he was really sweet. He settled really nicely. I think the instructor was actually impressed by how new the partnership was and how green he was and how he behaved, because he was better behaved than some of the horses that had obviously been under saddle and ridden for far longer. December then comes around, and that's when we did our first group lesson with people. That one was a bit of a disaster, if I'm quite honest. During the flat work portion, when we were warming up, there was 1 or 2 people on ponies who were just letting them kind of bomb off around the school and go really quick and come cantering up really close behind him, which he didn't like, and I kind of had to glare at them and be like, can you not, because he's freaking out about this and you're not helping the situation. So he really didn't like that. I'm glad to say that that isn't a thing anymore. I haven't had a group lesson like that since, and also when we go into like dressage warm-ups and show jumping warm-ups, he doesn't freak out when a horse comes cantering past him, which is brilliant. He knows that it's not a scary thing, he's not going to get run over. Yeah, that was our first group lesson. And then we actually felt really brave / stupid, and we went on the Boxing Day hunt meet in the town local to my stables. That was his first ever time seeing hounds, first ever time being on a hunt, and he was so good. He was in his French link Egbert snaffle with a flash on, and he didn't care about the hounds, didn't care about the horses galloping off. He just kind of kept pace, and he pulled up really nicely, jumped everything that I kind of showed him, and he was just really sweet. He did me really proud, but you could see sort of how skinny his neck was, and it's not as skinny anymore, thankfully. January then comes around, and at the end of the month we enter our first ever combined training. So we just did, the test was an intro B, and it was a 60 centimeter show jumping, where during the dressage test I completely bodged it, went completely wrong, and I had no contact, no outline, no nice, like, oh, that looked quite nice. None of that. Everything was just kind of, imagine, you're on your bog standard cob riding school pony who just potters around with his head out like that. That was all it was. And then he actually went clear in the show jumping, which I was really happy with. I went over the last, and I started like rallying up because I was just so proud of him for going clear. All I wanted him to do that day was to get around. I didn't care if he took poles, I just wanted him to go over everything first time, and he did that, and he also cleared it, especially the double, where he had done maybe 2 or 3 doubles before that in his life, so they were very new to him, and the doubles that we had done previously were an upright and then to an oxer, not an oxer to an upright, so he did really well to cope with that absolute curveball. Sorry, I've just had to go back home because somebody was sorting out 2 of their horses at the yard, and I was like, oh, this is a bit awkward, I don't really want to film anymore. February We didn't have any competitions. Instead, we just went up to Nakontox. It must have been the very start of February. We bought our towing vehicle, Luna, the Freelander. We could do what we wanted at that point. All we had to do was arrange to hire a trailer, which was a darn sight cheaper and a darn sight easier than big borrowing, stealing, lifts off of other people at the yard that had trailers and only being able to do it if they were already going up there. So we went up to Nakontox. We had a really nice ride all around there. That was one of the first hat cam videos I think I did on this channel, maybe, if I remember correctly. In March, that was when we kept the jumping up and we actually did our first 80cm oxer, which went really well, and that was when things were starting to slowly come together and I was starting to see more of what he could do, and I was like, oh, we've got a little bit of an engine in the back there. Granted, he was still very, very weak. We had a little gleam of hope, and I was like, oh, he could be something quite nice if I keep working at this. And then he got kicked, and everything swiftly came to a grinding halt. I had been up on a Monday, as I normally do, and I gave him a lunge, and he was all good, all happy. And then he had the Tuesday and the Wednesday off, and I went back up on the Thursday to find him essentially on 3 legs. And from talking to people at the yard, nobody had seen anything, nobody had heard anything. All I knew was that suddenly my boy is on 3 legs and he's got a cut on his leg just sort of below the stifle. So I was like, oh God, like this is bad. And it was really, really swollen as well. And you all know what happened. The swelling didn't go down, he didn't come down, so I had to x-ray, but the x-rays thankfully came back all clear. So I was like, brilliant, okay. Cried tears of relief, we can start getting on the mend. And then I think he was on box rest for a total of 4 weeks or so, something like that, before he was then allowed back out. And then it was a lot of walking in hand to get his strength back up, get his muscles back up, and just keep an eye on that he doesn't then go lame again on that leg from upping his work. But thankfully he's been sound ever since. Touch wood. That was our March written off completely. Our April was then spent in hand walking, lots of the tail bandage from building band. I used that a lot. It was building, our strength back up. And then towards the end of April or mid-April, we had our first cross-country lesson with Camembert and our first ever cross-country clinic, first ever lesson with Camembert. And I was so excited and so happy and so nervous. But I got nothing but good compliments from him, from Cam, which was really, really nice. He gave me some good pointers to work on, and I will still gloat about this to anyone that will listen. But hearing Cameron saying that Milo is my horse of a lifetime is just next level. And the fact that he said that after just seeing us, for like an hour or so, and it's my first ever horse that I've owned myself, was just amazing. I need to book back in with Cameron so that he can see the progression we've had now, because he was still rather green when we did the cross-country clinic. We were doing the 60 to 70, whereas now when we go back we'll probably be doing the 80. So I would like for Cam to kind of see where he saw us in April to wherever he next sees us. I don't know when I'll be able to get back down to have a lesson with him. Changing arm, changing angle. So that was April, and I was all gearing up for June, which was our first ever one-day event. So we entered the 70 centimetres at Pontypool, where we did an all-weight dressage test. I worked really hard on the dressage, and it must have been from about February, that I had either monthly or fortnightly dressage lessons with a really, really, she is so good, really good instructor who's been doing just wonders for flat work. So yeah, I worked really hard on my dressage, and we had a contact in walk and trot at that point. However, sadly, we didn't have it on the day. I think that atmosphere of it and there being so much to look at, he was just a bit like, oh, like, let's just look around. And so we actually posted a 37.6, I believe, if I remember correctly, for our dressage, which included a really bad canter on one of the circles where I put him too wide and he went to kind of jump back in over the whiteboards, went disunited, and then he actually changed himself back, but I didn't notice that he had. So I brought him back to trot and then asked him again. So I think we got like a 4 or something for that canter, which, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, to still get 37.6, I was really happy with. That was our first one-day event. We had one pole down in the 70 where I thought on the day he hit it with his hind, but what he had actually done is he had jumped it and he had his fronts up, and I think he didn't trust himself to land after the jump, so he went to go and put his front feet down and he hit the back rail with his front feet, which then resulted in obviously 4 faults, but it is what it is. And then the cross country, I took an alternative and we had one stop where it went light to dark. But other than that, I was really, really happy with him for how he just coped with the whole day. 2 weeks after that in June as well, we then went back up to Pontypool where we had our first ever horsey riding camp, which was so good and was one of my favourite things I've ever done with him. All the people that I met there were lovely. I met, her Insta name now is Tales of Two Geldings or something like that, but she was originally called the Tico Diaries, so I met the Tico Diaries there. I met some lovely girls called Maddie and Ella who were also sort of riding in my group, and it was just a really fun horsey time. I learnt a lot, Milo learnt a lot, and the instructor Nikki Lum seemed to really, really like him. We also got over some of our sort of bogey obstacles and we got over a ditch really nicely. We just grew in confidence so much to the point where even though we had entered the 70 centimetre group, we were jumping the 80s out on the cross country, and I was wanting to jump the 80s. It wasn't being forced to be like, oh god, you can do it, believe in yourself. It was, no, I want to jump the 80 option because I think we can do it. And it was really, really fun. So yeah, highly recommend. If you ever get the chance to go on a riding camp, do it. It is the best thing. So after all of the excitement of June, I then gave Milo just over a week off. It was meant to be a week off at the very start of July. However, while I was away on holiday, I got a midgie that's just wafting around. While I was away on holiday, he decided to rip off his front shoe, which meant that he then got another week off because he had ripped it off and taken like a couple of chunks of hoof with it. I don't know where that shoe is, still haven't ever found it. He also went footsore, so he had an extra week off. So he had about 2 weeks off at the start of July, which, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, was probably better for him to have a longer period of time off, just so he could settle, be a horse, and chill and absorb everything he's learned from the past few months. We then started upping our training a bit more in July, and that's where we did a 90 oxer out on the cross country on the working hunter jumps, and then we also started doing, you know, more 80s, more 90s in our lessons, and I was schooling him myself over 80s, which is me starting to get back to what was my comfort zone on the previous pony I was riding and exercising for someone. So things were starting to get, you know, back into where they were, where I wanted them to be. We were stepping up everything. Everything was going really well. Our dressage lessons, our walk and the trot were where we wanted them, and our canter work was the next thing that was being worked on. August, which is the month we've literally just left, involved going back out to Pontypool again for a cross-country clinic with Andrew Lovell, where I put my both pants on and we did the 80 centimetre options. I was quite surprised. I thought, oh, we're probably going to be, you know, like the greenest combination because it's our first time stepping up to doing just the 80s. And actually we weren't. He was really, really good. He was really well behaved. He did me so proud. It was quite funny because Andrew, if you ever get a lesson with him, he's so, like, there's no pressure with what you do, and he makes everything quite funny as well. And he said that, you know, we had been doing 70s for too long, we need to now up our training and up our competing to do 80s, and also that he could pick up when I was tense about something. So one of the jumps that we had to do was a drop. It was just a little log, but you were landing on sort of like a steeper slope towards water, something that I've not done before. And so going over it, he noticed that the first time I held my breath. So the next time around, he was like, you kind of need to breathe if you're doing these sort of things. So he made me count the days of the week, and funny enough, that worked because I wasn't thinking, oh god, we're hitting this on the wrong stride, or oh, we need to be tense. I was just counting the days of the week and staying in a nice rhythm. So that was brilliant. But yeah, all of August has just been upping our dressage practice, upping our cross country, upping our jumping, all with the aim of next weekend on the 10th of September, when this midgie decides to leave me alone, going and competing at Pontypool for the Cotswold Cup, where we are doing an 80 centimetre senior. So fingers crossed it all goes well. I'm hoping it does. We are working hard. I tried my dressage test on Friday, just being, and I don't know it as well as I would have liked to know it, which is a bit concerning, but we'll keep practicing and keep, going over it in my head. I think I'd literally just missed one of the 20 meters, and that put me in the wrong place for the other things. So that brings us up to where we are now. Overall, the difference in him from the first jumps and the first, doubles and flat work bits that we did to now is so insane, and I can't quite fathom that I've done it, and that has been my hard work and me pushing through. It was to a point where I was genuinely worried at one point, thinking he's not going to be able to do what I want him to do, and I've got a horse that can only do 70 that I really love, even though I've got aspirations to do, 90 eventing, and he won't be able to do it. Whereas now, there's not a doubt in my mind. I believe he can do it. We're just going to keep slogging on. The aim is, grassroots aim is to go BE90, but we're going to keep it unaffiliated for a bit, get our confidence up at the 80s, get our dressage up together, and then probably when he's maybe 7 or 8, we'll step up to BE90s. It's just all about getting the experience for me, getting the confidence, so that I don't push ourselves too soon and then we end up going backwards, which is the last thing I want to do. I want to step up only when I feel that we are ready, and when I feel that, the 80s are getting a bit too easy. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this little look back on a year of Milo. He really is the apple of my eye. I feel forever grateful that I found him, forever grateful for everyone that has helped me with him, either dressage or sort of husbandry things where I've not really known what I'm doing or how to treat something. Yeah, it's been really, really fun. It's been hard work. It's been emotionally draining at times, like I think any horse in general is, especially when it's a young horse. So yeah, I'm just glad I've got my boy. We're moving up. We're not going backwards, and there's a lot of exciting things to look forward to with him. So yeah, I think I'll end this here before I ramble on for much longer. But I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I hope you've enjoyed looking back on all the sort of greenness and things that I've had to work through with him, as truly it's been quite a journey. But yeah, I will see you guys later, and I hope you have a nice day. Bye!